First I will. You guys start voting. Interrupted.
He's here.
Here.
Boom.
Here.
Great.
What?
You're here.
Just say yes.
Gray.
Yes. Here.
Ray, Joyce, and Reedy are excused. Lakakis, here. Simpson,
Here.
and Ward.
Here.
7 present, Mr. Chairman.
7 present, it's 4-3, right? Okay, we're ready.
All right.
Wait a minute. You want to hear the minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to. Motion, second.
Second.
Anybody opposed to not hearing them? It's unanimous.
All right. Second, 2 and 3 are tabled at request of sponsor. Item 4 is authorizing a collective bargaining agreement with the Albany County Sheriff's Council 82 Local 775 Corrections Unit and amending the 2023 Sheriff's Office budget. Sheriff.
Sheriff,
Good evening. So this is our correction officers contract. We've come to an agreement, six-year contract. Obviously, 22 and 23 are over. 3% raises the remaining days, $2,500 retention bonus. It's a good contract for them. Hopefully, it'll help us, retain my senior staff and attract some youngsters into the business.
Sheriff, was it passed by the union
Yes.
officers? They passed it?
Yes.
Any question for the sheriff? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, your 2,500 retention bonus, Sheriff, this is going to come up in personnel later, but can they collect it on Thursday and leave on Friday? Is there any requirement that they stay once they
I
get?
don't believe so.
Okay,
I don't believe so.
all right, thanks.
Any other questions? Take a
Well,
motion.
isn't,
Go ahead.
isn't the idea that they stay to get the bonus, right? I mean.
They're getting the bonus right away.
That's what.
They're getting the bonus right away.
Right, but have they become eligible for it because they've been there a certain amount of time?
But they didn't know they're going to get a bonus.
Oh, they didn't.
This is new proposal.
That's all members,
Oh.
new and old.
Listen, I'm totally for this. These young men and women up there have been struggling. They've been grossly underpaid. This is, it's not a whole heck of a lot of money, but you know what? It's a boost for them. So they're very appreciative. I can tell you that.
I agree with you 100%. Yes,
I have a question. I'm for it too, but is it the same as the other bonus we're discussing, or is this a different retention?
This is a
bonus?
contract. It's in their contract.
Okay. It's not the one that we're talking
No,
about
no,
later?
no,
Okay,
no.
okay, I'm
This-
sorry. I think that might be why there's
Yeah, I don't know what that one is.
there's another one going around.
Stick around for that
Yeah,
one. We-
Okay. All right, so
Hurry up and get me out of here, sir.
yeah. That's what we're, just trying to see
Motion?
which
so
one is
moved.
what.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Nobody opposed, unanimous. Thank you, Sheriff.
Item 5 is authorizing a collective bargaining agreement with the Albany County Deputy Sheriff's PBA Local 3872 Council 82 and amending the 2023 Sheriff's Office budget.
Basically the same contract, they just reworked the numbers a little bit. As you can see, 1 year is a 2.75, but there's also some additional money in there that probably makes up for that. Steps were adjusted, we shortened the amount of time to get to the top. So again, I'm hoping that this helps us with retention. We've been struggling, we're down dozens of COs, almost 24 deputies, a couple dispatchers, and a couple dozen paramedics.
Where are they going, like mostly?
So some have just retired and didn't like the environment anymore, got out. A lot of them are going to the state police. A lot of them are going to the colonies, Guildlands, and Bethlehems that still, even after this contract, still pay a considerable amount more. But the state police are very short, so they're taking a bunch of people. I will say they're doing a lot of recruiting at military installations, trying to avoid poaching from local PDs and sheriffs that are already struggling. But many of them are just going to local PDs for higher dollars.
What's the starting salary for a deputy?
So it's gonna be now, it'll start at 50-51, it goes up about 3,000-4,000 step 2, goes up a couple thousand step 3, I think 7,000 step 4, and then about 11 or 12 on step 5.
So what's the starting?
Actually, I think it's more than that, because they end up going into 86, so.
Okay. How does that lag as compared to, town of colony, let's say, and the state? How dramatic is the
From
difference?
top, coming in, the local PDs are about 6,000-7,000 more right off the bat. And then the top step as well is usually about 10,000 to 15,000 more.
It's the same thing with the state?
They're even higher.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any more questions for the sheriff? I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Sheriff.
You all have a great night.
You too.
Item 6 is authorizing an agreement with Payroll Paycom LLC regarding human resources information system services and amending the 2023 Department of Human Resources budget. Commissioner Clement is here tonight.
Hi, Commissioner.
Good evening. This is for a human resources information system. This will help streamline access for benefits and payroll. We're currently using a Munis system, and this is proposed to work in tandem with that system, but help create a more efficient, more accessible employee access.
Any questions for the Commissioner?
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks. Does this do anything to make sure people, whatever they put in their hours, we know that they put those hours in? Does that help in any way electronically or any way?
It does, because it's gonna have a direct link to our payroll through, right now we use Kronos, which is a clocking system, but this will work with that system, and it'll actually help people request time off, they can access it through their phone. It's gonna just create a more efficient workflow for time and attendance as well.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Todd.
Does this allow, you mentioned the phone, are they able to clock in using their telephone? Or like using their PC, let's say, if they work at a desk?
So right now, departments are transitioning to being able to clock in at their desktop if they have a portable or port system laptop. They can access Kronos and clock in. They also still have, some departments still have access to the main punch clocks, but this will be accessible on their cell phone with geofencing.
So if you're a DPW guy and you're coming in at 8 o'clock out in Rensselaerville, you can go to your phone and account for your time, and then at the end of the day, you can do the same thing, so that'll be available.
Yes.
And it'll know that, yeah, this person's in Rensselaerville. Yeah, 'cause- I mean, we do that in private industry now, so I was wondering if we're doing that, you know?
Yeah, this system would move to that more mobile capability. Right now, our DPW folks do punch in at a clock currently.
Thank you.
Any other, go ahead, Paul.
Sort of a technical question, but having, living through Granicus and also with Kronos, this is $631,000 for one-time implementation. Is there I got a couple of questions. Is there an annual licensing charge that will happen in year 2?
Yeah, and so there's a per payroll charge, and so upfront, that charge we're hoping diminishes as we can streamline our services and payroll, but it'll be a per payroll fee. This fee is to implement, and then we wrapped in there the payroll charges to implement.
So this is a one-time cost all in for a whole year?
This is a portion of the year.
For this year.
For this year.
So this is 3 months of 20, or 4 months?
Implementation and then services for the rest of the year.
Okay.
So
what's the annual cost of it?
So there is an annual, if we are to, there's a chart in the backup that shows that if we are running 2,200 checks per year, we would have a weekly payroll cost, an annual cost of 1.1. If we go,
2,200 checks? I mean, how many employees do we have? We have over 3,000 employees, right?
we do not. So
We
this
don't.
is for
How many?
weekly payroll,
Weekly payroll. How many people do we have on a weekly payroll?
22.
2,200.
We have, we're
There's 40
hoping.
of us monthly,
Huh?
and there's 40 of us monthly. Other people like us.
Yeah, but I mean, how many total employees do we have?
About 2,200.
Total employees, everybody.
Yes, we have per diem employees who receive, checks here and there, election poll workers. Excluding the election poll workers, we have approximately 2,200.
So it's this number for implementation and the balance of this year, and then $1.1 million per year thereafter if you're just doing 2,200 checks per week.
Correct.
Okay. Is this enterprise software? Are you buying like a basic core package off the shelf that they sell to 100 municipalities?
So the package is specifically geared towards our setup because it has to talk to our system. So it's not necessarily off the shelf because it has to
Okay, well,
directly link to our general.
that's going to get to my next question. Usually, when you bid enterprise software, you have an allotment for customization. So that if you find yourself next year where there's a node you've got to change or you want to build, you have a certain $50,000 a year for custom programming is built into your agreement. Because what you bought doesn't have that capability, and it's very costly to change enterprise software, which is why after 5 years with Kronos, they're not able to customize it to the way that the legislature and the executive want it. And not Granicus, I'm sorry, I correct myself. And I think Kronos has many of the same issues as you buy the standard Kronos system, and it's basically geared towards you, but anything you want to change after that is very difficult and very costly. Has anybody thought about, is there anything, was this bid with any customization included?
It is,
Yeah.
and
Well, that's what,
this
it's good to
system,
hear.
so our current system under Munis is what you're describing. We're kind of locked in to those methodologies. It's inherently an accounting system and not necessarily one that lends itself easily to our Kronos or employee accessibility. So this program is intended to kind of wrap around that. It is just what you're describing. It's, by its nature, it's customized.
It's going to be
because it
custom
fits.
integrated.
Yeah.
Okay, at least, and that's part of the implementation for 631,000.
Yes.
Okay, but once you get it up and say it's humming on December 31st and you want to make a change for next year, what does the contract say? Do we know?
Yes, the changes actually occur within it because we're going to be, it's ever changing. We're going to be adding new pay codes, adding new methodologies, and it evolves with it because it's basically customized specific to what we're doing. So we will have to change frequently like we do now, only it won't be as cumbersome and difficult, and that's the reason we're doing this.
Okay. I wish Andrew were here. Are these changes that we're going to have to do ourselves with our IT staff, or is this something that this vendor is going to do on an hourly basis? The changes?
The vendor is going to make the changes.
So starting in 2024.
The system is housed with the vendor, yes.
Okay, I guess what I would ask for me, I'm not a member of this committee, but I would like to know how much latitude you have within the contract that's been bid for customization once you get this $631,000 up and running. So that if you do want to make changes next year, what might we expect is covered by the $1.1 million, and what is in excess, what could potentially be in excess of that?
Sure, I can get
That'd be great.
Yeah, Todd.
Okay, Commissioner, so I was just listening to that. So just doing some math, it's about $9.65 per check per annum. Does that sound right? Did we mess up the math? We got 2,200, when you say check, does that include direct deposit as well? Meaning payrolls, I guess,
Yes,
or
payroll.
pay employees, okay, so 2,200, anytime they touch a payroll, which is weekly, right? If you get 2,200 and you 52 weeks a year, you got 114,000 payroll incidents, okay, right? Whatever you want to call it. So if you do that math, it's just under $10 each. Are we also paying another payroll service to effectuate any of that?
No, so this
This
is
is
actually,
everything?
but it isn't just payroll, so that's the fee is, based on your payroll run, but it's all inclusive. They're running W-2s, they're processing all of those, benefits included, they're accessing all employee benefits, they're creating, accessibility for the employees. The check is just the methodology they're using for administering the fee, but it is not, just a fee for payroll.
So what efficiencies does this create? In other words, where do we lose a service or something like that, or a fee, by bringing these guys in and paying this extra money? Where do we gain efficiency here? I understand that usability for the employees, I get that part, but from an organizational standpoint, where do we gain efficiency?
So we've kind of been struggling along all these years with the system we have. As you know, right now, if you call to payroll to get a W-2 from, a few years ago, you're going to be, it's not easily accessible. It takes quite a bit. You probably reach me on the phone, and we search for your W-2s in a myriad of systems. So the efficiencies, although, I know what you're saying, you would like to see a removal of something else, it actually just creates efficiencies of time and accessibility for employees. And ultimately, yes, could it help us streamline and not have to fill positions in the future? It's possible, but right now we're just trying to ensure that employees are able to access their information and also run payroll more efficiently than we are today.
Well, I want to make sure I'm doing my math right. But if you put it that way, it's $500 an employee a year for that benefit. So that's why I'm asking. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of employees would rather have $500. So
So,
you understand why I'm asking the question, right? I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just looking at it going, wow,
Step up for a quick
that's a lot of
second.
cost.
so there's one thing that's also contemplated in the request, I believe it is in the commissioner's cover letter. Part of the reason we were able to look at adding a system like this is because her department has had a contract, I think earlier in the year or end of last year, that we entered into with HISI. They go through, it's specific to our pharmaceuticals, and they've been able to show so much savings on the pharmaceuticals and just freed up cash. Try to find other efficiencies to continue improving the department.
Right. So really this is, we should already be there, you're saying, we need this to be there. Is that fair enough to say, like, we need to be there in terms of like running it without a crate pulling everyone's hair out?
Well, and I'm not sure how long our department can sustain it.
Yeah.
It's becoming increasingly more difficult with the complexities of payroll, complexities of requests for information. It's very cumbersome currently.
I get that, and I appreciate the
Federal
explanation.
funds.
Yeah, so this is really just we gotta do this to be sane and be effective and,
Modernize.
yeah, okay. Thanks for answering those questions.
Liz? Go ahead, Lynn.
I'm always up for modernization. I think that the RFP questions looked, pretty thorough to me. But the one thing that I didn't notice is if this program could do additional, the other program that I use at my other work, we can sign off on documents that we've seen them, so through the Paylocity. So if I want to see the employee manual once a year, I could sign off right in that program. So I was wondering, did it have any document ability to add on later? And then my second question was, do you ever talk about bi-weekly payroll?
So the first question regarding document sign-up, it does have an onboarding feature which will streamline onboarding significantly right now. It's manual, and in person, and we would be able to streamline all of those signups that you receive the information and help people enroll online through their benefits. So it just creates a significant efficiency and ensures the employees receive the information. The second question, I'm sorry, can you?
Regular week,
Oh,
getting paid rather
payroll.
than weekly?
The, our hope is to move ultimately to biweekly payroll. We're working with unions slowly to attain that, and if we can, for the non-union portion, migrate to a biweekly payroll system, obviously would reduce it by half, so it significantly saves money.
It helps a lot with human error, I know, from using it myself. Like if you mess up your mileage, it just pops it right back out at you and says, no, sorry, you blew it, try again. You know, so it's a lot of, much simpler to deal with.
And currently, a biweekly payroll under our current system would be difficult at best to administer. This program provides that opportunity to move to a biweekly payroll process.
Thanks.
Is there any
Assembly?
contractual reason you, that would prevent you from doing biweekly payroll? I'm just curious.
And there are some collective bargaining agreements that specifically have weekly payroll.
But that would be a savings, I think. in
I'll take a
aggregation.
motion. You all done, Todd?
I'm just learning here, Gil.
I'm not
But
even
I'm all
learning.
done.
So, you want to give us a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I think she did a very good job. Thank you, Jim. If they're not satisfied with your report, forget about it.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, thank you. Republicans make a, look, don't defeat the motion, let them make it. Second it?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Jen, congratulations.
All right, item 7 is authorizing a one-time retention stipend for non-union employees of Albany County and amending the 2023 Albany County budget. Commissioner Riley's here.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this is a request to approve a one-time retention stipend for all non-union employees on payroll as of the passage of this resolution. So this would be for $3,000 per non-union employee. The county executive's view on this was, as you've seen with every one of the union contracts that have come through, they've either had a $2,500 or a $3,000 signing bonus. The union negotiation process, they look at everything as a whole. So one of the things that was put up was, if there's a signing bonus, obviously they'll settle for, you can take a little off somewhere else. So in terms of out-year savings, i.e. the 3% that we locked them in at, that was kind of the trade-off there. So the county exec kind of views it as what's good for the unions, also good for the non-unions. You don't want to leave everybody behind, especially in these times of 8-9% inflation. So this is an idea.
If they're all in the union, they won't be left behind. How many people are involved with this?
I think it's about 600 people, a little over 600.
622.
Non-unions?
622.
622 non-union? And the county executive decided to do this?
It was his initiative, yes.
Okay, any questions? Sean?
Yeah, I'm all in favor of anything to retain our employees. We're having a hard enough getting, attracting them. And I think it's important we do retain them. And I know that all of our, it seems like all of our contracts have had a retention stipend in them. But most of the ones that I've seen are $2,500.
So-
And we're looking at 3,000 here. So do you have a breakdown? You said some were 3,000?
Yeah, some were
I
3,000.
didn't, I know we've been approving these, I just haven't.
Yeah,
got the
so
tally.
if you, and we can put a table together for you if that makes things a little easier. Yeah, they were either $2,500 or $3,000 for across the board, is my understanding. Most of the ones that were at the 2,500 had additional other pays in there, other increases that the non-unions will ever see, whether it was an increase to a boot allowance, an increase to a lineup pay, various shift differentials, things along those lines.
Okay. I would be interested in a breakdown,
We can,
if it isn't too much of a.
yeah, we'll just get it to both the minority and majority conference.
Because I think it's, while I'm interested in looking at this, we do have to, and I know the unions bargain, they go to the table and bargain, but I think it's important that we try to keep some kind of stability in our workforce on both ends of it.
Would you add to that, copy be given all the legislators they want one?
Yeah, so I will send it to staff and they can distribute that to you guys.
Or put on, when you send to the staff, make sure you put that in the notification, if the legislators want one, they get a copy.
Of course. Do
Thank you.
you want me to just give you one directly?
I know what I said. Make sure we get a copy.
I'll make sure you get a copy.
So make sure our staff knows that. If you gotta put it in writing, and tell our chairman and our deputy majority leader, everybody else, put it in writing so all the legislators can have copies.
I
I'll
heard
do
you.
so.
It's not complicated. I'm from Cohoes, no, it's complicated.
We got this. Nobody holding anything, just send it right along.
You got it.
All right then.
You would like to have a copy, wouldn't you want to have a copy of
I'd
that?
love a copy.
I think most
Please
schools,
be
I
more.
wouldn't know why a legislator wouldn't have a copy of that.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay. Your turn.
All right, let me begin with retention. And I appreciate the conversation we had earlier, Dave. We're just going to disagree on some of these. Retention is not just about salary. It's about, do I like my boss? Do I get along with my coworkers? Do I see the value in my work? Am I recognized for my work? There's the room for advancement. All of these things affect retention, and this county doesn't pay enough attention to those criteria. We're always saying we've got to pay our people more in order to keep them. So I think we have an incomplete picture on retention. Now, I didn't realize all the union contacts, the retention, there was no schedule for this retention bonus. The whole point of a bonus is to keep people there. But of course, what I understand here is this is going to be paid immediately. You can get it on a Thursday and leave on a Friday. So I wonder if this committee would be interested in an idea that in order to get the retention bonus, you have to wait a certain period. Obviously, that is a reason to cultivate the retention. Right now, this is like early retirement. To get rid of employees, they give you a handout and then you leave. So I don't think paying them in a lump sum right away without any requirement to stay does anything for retention, and combined with the other things. A couple of questions I want to ask publicly, Dave. We talked about this. We just added 1,200 election inspectors and made them county employees, which concerned me because that would open the door to having county
They will not be
employees.
receiving this. These
But
are
they will not
full-time
receive.
part-time employees receiving benefits, pension. You know.
So election inspectors aren't going to get a $3,000
No,
check.
none of the per diem employees.
Okay.
You're probably not.
Part-time employees, even somebody making 20 grand is getting a $3,000 bonus? And 120 grand people are getting $3,000 bonuses? Okay. I think Todd wanted to talk about merit, but, because there's really no merit. The best employee and the worst employee is going to get the same amount of money. Was there any consideration for having some sense of merit on these bonuses?
The driving force behind this was to give parity between the unions and the non-unions. So that's where the structure came from. None of the, these comments about, extended time periods, picking and choosing one employee over another based on, work output. None of the unions have any of those qualifiers on theirs. That's why this was modeled in the same fashion.
Yeah, and I think the union negotiations I'm not privy to, and it's a back and forth and give and take. But this is something different. This is for non-union employees, and you really have a direct ability to, for example, should it be 2,500 and not 3,000? That's an interesting point Legislator Ward raised. But I do think as policy operatives, we have got to approach retention differently, and if we do, we'll be more successful.
I got a comment,
Yeah, Todd.
question. So, and I'm learning tonight that the idea is parity with the union, and I understand the concept, I'm not, daft. But at the same token, maybe some disagree, that Gil's down there. But at some token, we also have a chance, an opportunity to operate differently than the unions, which is actually a good thing in a certain sense, because we were talking about employee retention as a primary factor, and Mark mentioned, I'm not going to get into all that, but if you're worried about, and I hear a lot from department heads, we're worried about losing promising, particularly younger employees to the state or to private corporations because they have the opportunity to make more money, they have whatever. And if these people are dynamic workers that are bringing value to their departments and to the county and to the taxpayers, right? If these people are really doing a great job and probably, I would argue, being more productive, okay? But they're also stuck on kind of a pay scale that's set. You really can't do a lot about it. It would seem to me that this would be a great opportunity where department heads could have some discretion to reward employees that they're worried about losing. And reward them in commensurate with the meritorious nature of their work. Plus, I'm gonna throw this out there. There are employees that work for the county who are doing some work that most of us wouldn't do. I'm thinking nursing home right now, right? And other people that are in the trenches, making limited money, not pulling down six figures. I'd rather give them $6,000, okay? I'm being broad. But we have an opportunity to, somebody has dug up $1.8 million under a mattress and said, okay, we want to use this to bulwark our employment. From where I stand, I'm worried about having people to care for my elderly, patients here at the nursing home. That's a big thing for me. How am I gonna do that?
And they just got what they,
Okay,
they just got
but-
what they bargained for.
Okay.
There's 15 employees in the nursing home that are non-union.
That's it? Okay, so maybe those people need a hand. I don't know. The point is, I don't know all those details, but in my mind, if we have 622 people out there probably doing something important, if they're doing a great job and we don't want to lose them, some discretionary level of this funding might be appropriate.
Well, how much would you like to go? Because to give you a real world example, I just had an employee give notice last week for a $30,000 increase.
So are you saying all is lost? Why are we bothering?
Well, for the good employees, they do have the benefits. Not all is lost. There's a lot of people that want to stick around here. I've been here over 10 years myself.
I think it should be regressively scaled, to be candid. Okay, so if you're making 22 grand a year versus 122, by percentage, you get $3,000 at that level. It's a minimal change in your household budget, okay? But if you're making 22,000, you get 3,000 or 5,000 or $6,000. It's a tremendous increase in your household, available funds. It's much more impactful on the lower end of the scale. So much like most of our tax system, everything we do in government, I really think this should be scaled in the same way. Because I think the hardest people to hold on to are the people who need that extra couple $1,000s to make ends meet. So, I don't have all the data, so I don't want to be one of these guys that just says, this is how you do it. But what I'm asking for consideration on is, there have got to be people who are difficult to replace because no one wants that job or whatever, or people who are really promising in a job where you want to keep them there. And some level of discretionary funding is what I'm suggesting. So if you have $1.8 million and you take $1.5 million and divide that out and then do the 300, in line items that are very difficult to fill or whatever. I mean, it's a lot more work, I get it. But I'm just suggesting that if we're gonna use the money to retain employees, I think that requires some level of supervisor input, to give the have-nots a whole lot more than you're giving the haves.
So the only answer I can give to that is, as I said before, this was done to the same structure as the union agreements, which your body voted unanimously for every single one of them. So why is it a difference now that it's the non-union?
Because the union, people in the union have the union to live and die by, okay? So they elect leaders or appoint leaders, however they do it, you know what I mean? And those people make their deal for them. The non-union people don't, they have us, right? We're the policy set makers, you're their boss, Jen's their boss, whoever, somebody's their boss, right? They have those people in their corner, ostensibly. So that's why I'm suggesting it should be looked at differently. If the only goal is parity, then
excuse me,
of course
Todd.
we should move forward.
If it wasn't for unions, they wouldn't be negotiating for non-union people. Just don't think these companies give this stuff to employees. If it wasn't for unions, there'd be none of this stuff.
But that's
Listen,
not, but
well,
Joe,
yeah.
that's not what we're talking about.
But that's what I'm talking about. I also want to know, do you think that everything you brought up today, our county executive didn't think of that stuff?
I didn't say I didn't think of it. I'm asking, and Dave's answering like, no, this is what we're doing. So that's
That
why I'm
ain't
bringing
answering
my concerns.
My
to Dave.
question, you think the county executive thought everything you're talking about now? Do you think he thought the same things you are?
I know what do you think, because Mr. Riley's here to tell us that. How would I know what,
You didn't
how would
tell
I
us
know
that.
what the executive?
I'm asking, what do you think? Do you think the county executive weighed the thing like you weighed it?
Wait a minute, isn't the whole point of this to pressure test that? I mean,
Why is it relevant what I think Dan McCoy
Well, just
thinks?
asking, that's all. Because you're asking all these questions.
This is the man who's here to represent Dan McCoy. I'm asking him.
Yeah, well, did Dan take that into consideration?
This was not done on a lark. This was months of discussions.
So Dan had a lot of discussion on all this stuff. It wasn't just thrown out there
Yes.
to vote on by us.
Yep.
It doesn't get passed unless we vote it in.
This was originally contemplated before the first union negotiation was signed, when the union started bringing up the desire for these signing bonuses.
Okay, go
Fair
ahead,
enough,
Tom.
I think
Go ahead,
I've made
Tom.
my
Go.
point. So, thank you, I appreciate it.
Jeff,
Yeah, well, a couple things. The union, non-union comparison, the fact that the unions, and jump in and correct me or whatever on any of this. The unions are collectively bargaining. They make a deal that basically says we're gonna treat everybody the same. That's the deal that they've made. These non-union employees don't have that same deal. So there's no reason we couldn't depart from that paradigm with respect to the non-union employees.
I don't disagree with that. Historically here, and I don't know how far I can go back, I've been with the county about 12 years. We have always, the non-union increases to rates of pay, things along those lines, always follow the union contracts. So the unions are gonna get 2%, that's what leads to the non-unions getting 2% cost of living.
All right, so
So the unions drive it here is the way we've always done it in my time.
right. Okay. When you're giving a bonus, I know this is a retention bonus. Here's one of the things that I think about, and I wonder, and you can tell me to what extent you guys have considered this. If I'm the employee who's working really hard, and I'm a star, and I know I'm a star, and I know that I could probably go make more money elsewhere, what do you think that person thinks of, oh, I'm getting a $3,000 bonus, but so is my peer who I know doesn't work nearly as hard as I do, right? Like, was there some consideration of that? Because when in the private sector, where I've spent my whole career, bonuses are generally handed out, it's not arbitrary to the same bonus to everybody. It's a recognition of kind of going above and beyond, and usually the bonus amount is tailored to the performance of the employee. This is a little
No, and that
unorthodox,
Yeah,
that
and
was
that-
giving
that-
everybody the same amount.
Well, that nuance isn't lost on me. The first half of my career was in the private sector working for hedge funds and mutual funds. I truly understand bonus structures. My bonus checks used to be more than my annual paychecks. That said, we're not in the private sector. We're not working for a financial services firm. This is government services.
Yeah,
It
I
has a
get
different
it.
feel to it.
I get it. I just wonder if, but the whole point is that we're trying to, and I'm not saying I'm gonna vote against this, I'm just trying to kind of explore some of these things. We're trying to retain people, and the kind of, I think, arguably arbitrary nature of this, I don't know if that's the best way to retain people. I don't know if the whole idea that I'm talking about, which is everybody's getting the same thing no matter what, if that's the best way to retain people, or if it wasn't to have some kind of recognition that we're gonna reward the people who are working the hardest and performing the best, because that's how you retain the best people. You wanna somehow motivate them to stay here and not only to stay, but to keep working so hard, because when I do, I'm gonna get a little more. I'm gonna assume that you guys have thought about all these things, but it certainly, it does raise some questions in my mind, just given the same bonus across, because I'm not sure if it's ultimately, if it might not be counterproductive and discourage people to leave, because it's like, this is so arbitrary. Everybody's just getting the same thing regardless of performance. So, that's just some thoughts.
go ahead, Paul.
First of all, I am much more supportive of the bonus structure, because I look at it as, you know, if you're top level civil servant, got a $2,500 bonus, and management didn't get anything, you have compression between the various layers, which is somewhat unfair, so I'm somewhat sensitive to that. But I've heard every person that speaks so far talk about retention. And I am very, very concerned about what Mark said, which is on, make up a date, November 1st, everyone who's there gets $3,000, and then by November 15th, 5% of that workforce leaves. I don't think that's fair, because this is about retention. I would suggest, and once again, I would like to, this is something I would like to vote for. And I don't mean what I'm suggesting now, but I believe in the bonus to keep the parity levels between civil service and management. But I would like to see a clawback provision that says, hey, if you leave before 1 year, we're gonna take your $3,000 back, or whatever pro rata portion it is, from your accrued sick time and vacation time. So we're gonna get made whole. So if you're really serious about this being a retention measure and not a sweetener for early retirements, I'll take my money and run. Get there before the frost hits and we can be in Florida by then. I would urge the committee to consider a clawback mechanism, very simple. Doesn't have to be, Mark has his opinion that you should wait a year. I don't think you need to wait the year. I think you can give people their money and let them know that you gotta do a year, because this is about retention. Just a thought.
Thank you. Paul, Sean?
Yeah, we have to keep in mind, all these comments tonight are very, very good and very appropriate, but we are in a public setting here. And we abide by civil service law, and we have people in light titles where you can't, merit doesn't really come into play. Even though, I agree with what you're saying, Jeff, it's kind of tough. If one person the same title as you is not putting the effort in that you are, and getting the same thing, it is discouraging. But however, I think we have to abide by civil service law in the civil service structure. And the other thing is, I don't think bonus is a common word or a legal word in public law, so I think that might be the reason why it's being called the retention rates. But let's be real about it. It's a bonus for the people who stuck around, hopefully do stick around. I have no objection to some kind of mechanism for clawback, though, Paul. And they do it with police officers now. And when I manage a small town, we would, and Sheriff Apple will tell you, the greatest thing they can do is get appointed as a police officer or a deputy, and they get trained, because then they're very valuable to the suburban communities that pay a lot more. And we lobbied the state, and we were successful in getting the state to pass a clawback provision where we could be paid back for the prorated share of training if they left before, I can't remember if it was 3 years, 5 years, whatever. So I have no objection to looking at some kind of a clawback provision. But I do believe that this is important for our employees. And I'm not one that believes that salary is everything, and Mark, you make some good points. You and I talk about that all the time.
Yep.
People don't stay just for salary. But right now, our salaries have always been low. County salaries have always been lower. And it's very easy for the state to come in and even local governments to come in and grab our employees and take them somewhere else and pay them a lot more, where it makes their family life a little more stable, and they're in the same pension system. So, I definitely understand that, and I am in favor of this. I am in favor of it, but I do, I have no objection of looking at some kind of clawback provision, Dave. I don't know if it's something you talked about.
Well, as I said before, as we hammered out all the permutations of this, for lack of a better word, the most fair way we could approach this was to go with the same framework that you guys were already unanimously passing contracts for the unions with.
Yeah, and they bargained for
That's
those,
why
and
we
they get.
went with those terms.
When you're talking about those unions, most of them were 2 years out, so you're talking retroactive pay. Their contract started 2 years ago, I believe.
They got a retro check and they got the signing bonus.
Correct. So our employees that we're talking about now, you know, the non-union employees we're talking about right now. So I have, you know, it's just a thought, I am in favor of this. I will vote for it, but I kind of like the idea of some kind of a fallback if somebody leaves 2 weeks from now. You know, whether it's 6 months, and I like the pro ratas. You know, if it's pro rata, I think it's fair too. If they leave, you know, do it for 1 year. If they leave within the year, they gotta give something back, depending on how long they were there.
I don't even know if we could legally do that.
Why not?
Well, I know it's done in, you know,
As you said, we had to get an act of the state to do it for the training for the police,
yeah.
so I don't know if we.
Well, it's because,
Yes,
look into it. You know, I think it's something to look into.
Mark?
Yeah, just real quick, do
If we're
we
really
not-
talking about retention.
do we not have a bonus attached to our performance evaluation system? I know with the state, I was with the state from like 78 to 2000, I was a supervisor from 80. I was management confidential, so it was non-union, PEP got about 5,000 more than us. But we did have a bonus built into people who were above average performance. Do we not have that in our county system?
not at all.
Okay.
I would love to see it.
We have in the past, though, I've been on a personnel committee for 28 years. We have in the past, during the budget process, looked at individuals that have taken on more caseload or workload that were non-union employees and given them a bump in salary.
We've done both that, and we've also brought forth very valid cases and had them shot down by the legislature.
Yeah, that's correct, that's, you know, it's the process. But
Len, you got another question?
Well, I don't know how I feel about clawing back, but I do know that, you know, to me, a bonus is, it's a gesture, it's a one-time gesture, it doesn't have any long-term ramifications, it's not really gonna put anybody in another tax bracket, I don't think. You know, it's a gesture of thank you, you've been here for this long, when the unions put it in there, it's because they've just spent 2 years working for us, and it's at the end of that time they get the bonus. So the clawback thing, I don't like, it's a risk that you take, that they're not going to be there for the rest of their life, but that's the same risk that you take every day when you don't have any merit pay base, you know, intrinsic in your payroll system. So, you know, to me, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I would like to say thank you to the employees who stuck it out with us during the whole pandemic, and it's been really difficult for some of them, and imagine what managing places and, you know, all of our services must have been like during all that period, and, you know, for me, that's a fine reason to give a bonus, and I would definitely going to support this.
David, what would be the total cost to the taxpayers for all this?
It's at 1.8.
1.86 million.
86.
86.
Yeah, and it was paid for, the logic is as we continue to receive record sales tax this year over our budgeted amount, we're putting a portion of that back into the employees.
So it's $1.8 million, is that what you said?
$1.8 million, one shot. It doesn't count towards pension, it doesn't have any other costs
It's a one-shot
associated with it.
thing.
Yeah, just,
Sean?
yeah, the other thing, that these are all the budget items are lumped by department.
Yep.
But who is actually getting this bonus?
So it would be all full-time and part-time non-union employees, excluding elected officials, because obviously we have to set elected officials' rates of pay when they take, you know,
So the elected officials are not getting it?
correct, because by state law, we can't do it.
zero. That's our
Okay.
bonus.
But some get longevity and others don't.
Because the longevity schedule is set before you took office.
Okay.
Okay, one time, Mark, doing something?
Yeah. Just the fund balance, I wanted to talk about that, because I've always been leery of a huge fund balance, because people have the inclination to spend it, and this is what's happening. The fund balance is supposed to be for emergency situations, or when we have a bad year, but now we're coming up with $1.86 million in bonuses. I didn't envision the fund balance for that purpose, so that's one of the questions I had. And I do like the idea, in fact, I'm prepared to propose an amendment, that we give the bonuses $1,500 immediately, and then another $1,500 a year later. That will have, so they'll get the $3,000, but it will at least do something in the books for retention, which of course everybody is concerned about. So I'd like to propose that amendment.
There's no amendment. An RLA is submitted. It is what it is. You either vote it up or vote it down. You can't force them to amend anything, because it's a
We amend
submission,
on the committee all the time.
not RLA.
Local laws and stuff, but
Well, yeah, you can amend local laws that are proposed by members, if the member agrees. You can't amend a resolution, request for legislative action that has been submitted by the executive. You can ask him to
I
make
can do it on the
changes to
floor.
it.
Floor of the legislature?
No, you either voted up or you voted down.
Well-
That doesn't seem right to me, that's.
No, it's two different things. It can be amended on the floor, but typically here, in order for the amendment, the person or the legislator that's proposing the legislation would have to agree to the amendment.
Yes.
If they don't agree to the amendment, so you could have a conversation with the proposer and say, would you like to amend it to split it 1,500. If he or she doesn't want to do it, then it would go to the floor as written. You can certainly propose an amendment on the floor where it would go up or down based on the vote on the floor.
But in this case, because it's an executive proposal, the request to make any changes to it would be made to the executive. So, I mean, and the committee could certainly ask for any changes, and changes could be proposed or not, given the executive's consideration of them. But
You
at
can't. So you're
the
saying-
committee level, you either voted up or down, you don't.
So the full
amend.
legislature can amend something before then?
A slightly different question, but for this purpose, for the committee purpose, it's voting up or down.
Okay, so.
So it
But
either
the full
moves forward or
legislature,
does not.
I can't imagine the full legislature can amend something, I mean, really.
It's slightly different, but again, because it's an executive proposal, not a member item, it's different.
There is one more option, of course, and that is the committee, if it decides to table the matter for further conversation with the executive office.
I'm prepared to move this now, but I do have that one reservation that everybody does about callback. I do not, Mark, respectfully, don't agree with you, because what that does, and Frank just yelled in my ear as soon as it was proposed, that it gets us into another budget year with a new body that might not honor it. And then, then we're voting it down.
Even if that were part of how we amended it?
Well, sure, because we have to go through a whole new budget process starting in October.
So how would we do what you suggested earlier, Sean?
The callback?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's something I'd like, again, this is an executive proposal that I'm prepared to vote for with, with I'm just giving them something to think about, basically. They should really think about a way to get it back. If it is truly a retention, or, if it's a bonus, then we're rewarding them for past service, for sticking it out like Lynn says. If it's truly a retention raise, then, maybe you think about callback. So,
But that's retention, it seems to be the coin of the realm these days.
yeah, my guess it's a legal term for a bonus. But bottom line is, I'm in favor of this, and I'm prepared to vote yes for it, but I'm just asking Dave to bring this back to the executive's office and think about it.
Well, can we ask-
Because it's their proposal.
With all due respect, I think we talked, is that much more we can do except take a motion
Yeah.
and vote on for or against, or no recommendation?
I'll make the motion that we move it to the floor favorably. I have no objection to
Is
that.
that a second?
With-
Second.
Second. Okay, take a roll call.
Okay. Ethier?
Can I,
Oh, sorry.
does
Go ahead.
anybody, is anyone making like a competing motion on this?
And
No,
everybody's saying,
we just had
I
some
mean, I was
discussions,
just-
yeah.
do you want to make another motion?
Well, no, I seconded his,
Oh,
but
okay.
I didn't know if
No, there's the
they're
first
not gonna
motion.
move, they're not gonna.
Jeff, basically,
So far,
this is an
can't say.
executive proposal,
Well, I was listening.
so they have to.
Are you asking
You-
just
you're
for a
right.
competitive?
Yeah, I
motion?
was just curious.
Gotcha.
No,
Okay, I thought you were asking
Motion.
something else.
Yeah,
All right, so Ethier,
Favor.
Kuhn,
yes.
Drake,
Yes.
Grimm,
I'll vote yes to move it to the floor, but that's as far as I'm committing right now.
Lakakis,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
and Ward.
Yes.
All right, all in favor?
All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Dave, for taking the time and presenting it to us.
Thank you, Dave.
The motion is adjourned?
Please.
Second? Thank you.